So, how do we deal with negative self-talk, and how do you deal with even parts, patterns, behaviors that you straight up hate about yourself? And I know that for myself, I was really, really hard on myself. And there might be patterns or behaviors that you keep on doing that where you're just so frustrating and you just hate that you do it, but you still do it. Okay? How do you deal with it? There's actually a very straightforward way. And we can actually come into peace with that, which then frees up energy that we actually do and achieve what we want to achieve. So, the first kind of step is, and I'm just inviting you to try that on for now. The first step is to accept and to embrace that this behavior, whatever it might be, maybe it's impulsiveness, maybe it's you get reactive in a conversation, maybe it is after you have a conflict, 10 minutes later, you had this conversation, and 10 minutes later, you think, I could have said this thing, and then you beat yourself up for not having said that. Does that sound familiar? Or you try to fulfill a task, but then you jump to social media or you go, I don't know, do something else and not actually fulfill that task. And then later in the evening, you're mad about yourself because you haven't achieved what you wanted to achieve that day. Does that sound familiar? Procrastination, right? So how do we deal with it? So the first step is, and I'm inviting you to try that on, is to embrace the fact that all of the behaviors you're doing in this moment and that keep showing up have served you in some form in your life. Okay? They've served you. Let's just try that honest truth. Why is that so? So, most of the patterns we have in our life, about 95% by the time we're 35 and we're not fully conscious and aware, are actually learned repetitive behaviors that we have picked up in childhood and then kept repeating on doing that, whatever we did, longer and longer and longer. So it's like learning an instrument. So you play the guitar, you do it very often, you do it every day, you learn to play the guitar within 10 or 20 years, right? So if we do the same thing, if we react the same way, then we also carve these neuronal pathways and then keep on behaving the same way and having the same patterns in your lives. So let's just take an example. If you were a child, right? And then maybe you went to school at some point and then the teacher was like, okay, now we're doing math. But actually, what do children want to do when they're like 5, 6? They don't want to learn math. They want to go outside, play with their friends. I don't know, try out video games nowadays, right? Like whatever, do something that might be labeled as dangerous or secret or whatever. You want to explore. So back then, you were like, fuck math, right? I don't want to do math. So a part of you actually emerged. Okay, and this is a part of your personality emerged that instead of doing the math exercise, went and drew some pictures or like was daydreaming, went into another world in order to protect yourself because you did not really want to do that. Okay. And this part showed up again and again and again. And now it's still showing up, even though you think that the goals you set are the goals that you want to do. Now you're procrastinating on these goals because way back in the days when you were 5 or 6, you learned these behaviors. Does that make sense? So with whatever you're seeing in your life, the negative self-talk or the patterns that you just straight up hate or get frustrated about, think about how have they served in a particular moment in time, maybe when you were younger, maybe just a few months or years ago. How have they served you, and how have they tried to bring a positive outcome into your life? That's the first step. And then the second step is get super, super curious and compassionate with them and connect. So curious, compassion, connection. You want to get super curious, like, why am I procrastinating here? Not why am I procrastinating? No, that's judgmental towards yourself. But why am I procrastinating? Like, really get curious and then have compassion for the part that comes up, mostly as somatics. You can even feel the somatics of that if you have a connection to your body. Just feel into the somatics or the feelings. There might be sadness, there might be, frustration or whatever. Just connect to that and feel into that, and then be like, okay, like, why are you showing up? Like, why am I procrastinating? Get really compassionate and then really connect with that part, right? And embrace that part and be like super, super loving and caring towards that. And then slowly you build the connection. And over time, if you repattern this, right? If you repattern this, if you reunite with that part, and if you start to bring more and more compassion to that, then you will rewire that in the long term. And then you will be able to not procrastinate, but just do the thing because you have cultivated self leadership within yourself with all the parts that are here. And of course, there are very skillful modalities and practices that I, for example, do in the work with my clients where we achieve incredibly beautiful and fast results in a very short amount of time. And you can also do that by yourself. You can start cultivating, which will probably take longer than if you get professional help. Um, but you can do that on your own. And the three steps, as I said, are definitely curiosity about the whatever is arising, the feeling, the part, whatever's showing up. Second, be compassionate, and the third one, connect with it. And yeah, I'm wishing you all the best. And have a beautiful, beautiful day.